Hey guys, welcome to the video. Salt here. Today we're going to be going over the brand new Archgun the Arbucep. But before we start, let's go over our commenter board. The first commenter of the last video was Griffin, and the top commenter of the last video was Top Her Nico. And our recent channel supporters here are Elite Reverser, Whoop-De-Wham, and Nice Bear. Thank you so much for your support. Unique and interesting things about the Arbucep is that it fires 6 homing missiles, and each one of these missiles has an innate combined element on it. If we look at the status sheet here, you'll see that one of the missiles is blast with its radial doing blast, another missile is corrosive with its radial doing corrosive, and so on. We have gas, magnetic, radiation, and then viral for that 6th missile that it fires. Now, multi-shot is converted to damage on this weapon instead of more projectiles. This is similar to laser weapons where it kind of functions the same way there. Also, when you're playing Noko with this weapon, then shooting at Noko's mushrooms also increases their pulse rate. Now let's go over the mods. We have Primed Rubedo Line Barrel for 187% damage. Prime Deadly Efficiency for on a reload from empty, we get a 220% damage buff for 17 seconds. It's very important to know that Primed Deadly Efficiency only works in heavy weapons mode, meaning that you're just in your regular Warframe and you're pulling your heavy weapon out. In that case, this works, and that's because as a heavy weapon, the weapon actually reloads, and so you can proc that buff because of that. In Necromech and in Archwing, you're not technically reloading, you're recharging. So this does not proc in Necromech and Archwing. And so for this weapon, and honestly for a lot of the Arc guns, just have 2 different setups where you have a heavy weapons mode and a Necromech and Archwing mode. And as a Necromech or an Archwing, you will not use Prime Deadly Efficiency, and you'll be using modified munitions instead, which is just plus 60% status chance. It's not that great, but at least it's something there. But in heavy weapons mode, Prime Deadly Efficiency or Deadly Efficiency is very good. Next, we have Primed Dual Rounds for 110% multi-shot, Automatic Trigger for plus 60% fire rate, Hollowed Bullets for plus 80% critical damage, Critical Focus for plus 60% critical chance and damage when aiming, Mark Target for 120% status chance when aiming. In the last slot here, we have a cold mod, Hypothermic Shell. This is the 60/60 cold mod, and that's because on this build, we're going to be using primary frostbite, and to stack frostbite, we need to have cold on the build. So that's what this is for. In the arcane slot, we have primary frostbite. This is on a cold status effect. We get plus 3% critical damage and plus 2.25 multi-shot for 12 seconds, stacking 40 times, and it's very quick to stack frostbite here. And in the secondary arcane slot, we have secondary enervate. This is on a hit, increases our critical chance by 10% and resets after 6 big critical hits, which they consider as orange crits. There's one more thing I want to go over with the Arbucep, and that's a variation to this build using primary Crux instead of primary frostbite. So before I explain that, let's look at primary Crux first and just explain what it does. So this is on a weak point hit. You gain plus 30% status chance and plus 6% ammo efficiency for 10 seconds, stacking up to 10 times. So when this is fully stacked, that's 300% status chance and 60% ammo efficiency. Now there's some issues with Crux, and that's because this weapon is a homing missile weapon. It doesn't try to go for headshots. And on testing, I found that, in Circulus, where it's very enemy dense, that should be like the best case scenario, I was on average sitting at 4 to 5 stacks of Crux. There were some instances where I was at 10 stacks. There were some instances where I lost my stacks and I was at 0 or 1, but on average, I was at about 4 to 5 stacks of Crux. And again, that's best case scenario, a very enemy dense map like Circulus. On less dense maps, that's going to be a lot worse than that. So the build using primary frostbite, the one we just showcased, is the strongest build for the Arbucep, and that's definitely the build you should be using if you're going to be using a Necromech or an Archwing. Obviously, switching primary deadly efficiency out for modified munitions in that case. But as a heavy weapon, there's something you do have to consider. You have to consider ammo economy. Heavy weapons don't have great ammo economy, and even though primary Crux is weaker than primary frostbite, it does give you a little bit more longevity with your heavy weapon. You know, you trade doing maximum damage for just a little bit more longevity there. Now, if you're going to be using the primary Crux setup, so like let's say you were deciding to do that and you're going to switch primary Frostbite to Crux, instead of hypothermic shell, which is the 60-60 cold, use the 60-60 heat mod. And that's going to be, I think it's called magma chamber. So with the Crux build, just switch Frostbite to Crux and switch hypothermic shell to magma chamber and you are golden. This is how you build out the Archgun the Arbucep. I hope you guys liked it, and if you did, consider leaving a like and subscribing for future content. So now we'll have a 5-minute gameplay portion showcasing the weapon, and when that's done, we'll come back to the Orbiter and we'll give it its final score and rank. So I'll see you guys again after the gameplay. Alrighty, we're about to start this 5-minute gameplay portion up here. Let's go ahead and hack the terminal and we'll get into it. So for the sake of the gameplay portion, I'm going to be using Protea's dispensary to give me heavy weapons ammo, so I can just keep my little Archgun out all the time. But normally that's not how heavy weapons will function. Normally heavy weapons, you'll whip them out, you'll get some burst damage out of them, and eventually you'll run out of ammo and they'll just kind of go away. Even if you went with the Crux build, which will give you more longevity at the cost of a little bit less damage, even that eventually you'll run out of ammo and they'll just go away. There are some tricks you can do to keep your Archguns out forever, but it's kind of questionable whether you'd want to do that. One of them is like what I'm doing here with Protea's dispensary. The thing is, it's not a very strong ability, so you really would only be using it for the heavy weapons ammo, and I mean it's kind of a weak subsume, right? I think I only have like one build out of all of my builds that uses dispensary as a subsume. But that is technically a way to keep Archguns out forever. I think Lavos has a way to set them up to keep Archguns out forever. There might be one or two other Warframes that can have things about them that can keep Archguns out. But most of the time, you're going to be using Archguns in their heavy weapons forms as just burst DPS, and then eventually they'll just go away. Or obviously using it in the Necromech or in the Archwing. I do like this weapon though. You do want to aim in. You don't need to aim carefully because it'll kind of just home in on enemies, but you do want to be making sure you're aiming in, because 2 of the mods we have on the build requires you to at least be aimed in. Very easy to use, pretty strong. Crit chance isn't great, but you have Enervate for that. So you'll see it scale from like whites and yellows to oranges and reds eventually. It should, with Enervate, they should reset after 6 oranges, but frequently you'll still get a few reds out of it. So once in a while you'll see some reds. Something I wanted to mention with building for this weapon that I saw a lot of people doing on Overframe, and I'm like, I don't know what the hell you're doing, is a lot of people on Overframe are going like pretty crazy on elements on here. They're putting the radiation mod, I guess just to get 30 multi-shot, which is not worth it, but they're putting the radiation mod, they're putting the magnetic mod. Some people are even putting more than just those 2. And the thing you have to consider is that every modded element that you put on gets put in one of the combined elements status sheets on the weapon. So each of those 6 rockets has their own status sheet. And so you're diluting the pool to actually get the combined elements. And some of them are really powerful, like Corrosive's a really, really good combined element to have. Viral's really, really good. Magnetic is really, really good if you're kind of playing like higher level content. So like 3 of them are really, really good, and the other 3 are still pretty damn good too. Especially Blast. You know, Blast you get a lot of value out of too. And so the more elements you put on the build itself, you're diluting those combined elements. So you don't want to do that. I'm looking at all these builds in Overframe. I don't know what the hell they're doing here. So if you're going to make your own build, like let's say you don't like my build and you're like, I'm going to make my own, don't go nuts with elements. Like if you want to go for a heat build like we showed with Crux, just go for the 160-60, right? Because you'll still get a lot of heat because it's going to be on all 6 of those missiles status charts. But you won't be overweighting it so that it's diluting all of the combined elements. So just consider that. If you are going to go for your own build, don't go nuts with elements. There might be some niche situations to go nuts, right? Like there might be some situations where you'd want to go like hard in the paint with 2 heat mods to overweight it. That way it's on all 6 of the status charts. And you have like a lot of heat being produced. You know, obviously though, that would be at the cost of those combined elements then. So it would be something you would have to just consider, but I think 99% of the time you don't want to go hard with elements on it. Testing this weapon, like for over the past couple days, I've noticed that sometimes this just doesn't want to target acolytes. I don't know if you guys have kind of felt the same thing. Oh, you know what? We're at 5 minutes anyway. Let's I'm yapping. I don't even know that we have Thraxes out already. Let's get these Thraxes down. I've just noticed that sometimes it just feels like it doesn't want to target the acolytes. It'll just kind of go past them and it'll target like trash. There we go. Okay, he's down. So that's 5 minutes, 459 kills. Let's head back to Orbiter now. Welcome back to the Orbiter, guys. So let's go over how the Arbucep did in its 3 10-minute runs on Steel Path Lewis Circulus. It got 933, 851, and 921 kills, and if we do the average of those 3 numbers, that's 901, which is barely in the S tier for kill per minute potential. When it comes to single target damage, it's pretty good. I mentioned that it has like kind of a weird thing with the Acolyte where a lot of times it wants to like shoot around the Acolyte. I don't know if anyone else has had that issue. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's a non-issue and I just think it's happening, but just a little bit annoying there. But for single target versus like Thraxes, Eximuses, I mean, honestly, even the Acolyte, when it does hit the Acolyte, it's pretty damn good. I wouldn't say it's S tier. It's not one-shotting or two-shotting them, but it's still killing them in like, you know, less than about 3 seconds or less. So I would say it's A tier for single target. When it comes to ease of use, this is something I'm kind of back and forth between. S tier is for weapons that you can like close your eyes and aim at the ground and still get almost as much value as if you were like actually trying to play the game. I feel like, you know, you at least have to aim in the general direction with this weapon. The weapon homes in, so you don't really have to aim good. You just have to aim in the general direction. So I don't want to give it S tier because of that. I think we'll give it A tier for ease of use. Something else that I wanted to mention with the Arbucep, and honestly for art guns in general, is that like, yes, this scored S tier for kill per minute, A tier for single target, but why would you pull it out? Like most people are going to be running A and S tier weapons already. You know, why would you go through the trouble of pulling the weapon out for some burst damage that your weapon is probably already capable of doing? Maybe if you're someone that really likes using like a B tier weapon, you just really like let's say the Kuva Carrack, it's your favorite weapon, you just always use the Kuva Carrack, then I could see maybe whipping out the Arbucep, getting some heavy burst damage, then going back to your Kuva Carrack. I can see that maybe being a thing, but most people are going to be already running A and S tier weapons, and like this isn't that high in the S tier for kill per minute to be like, I feel like worth whipping out. Like it barely got S tier with 901 kills. That's just my take on that. It's my little, I guess, question for you guys. So that's my take on the weapon. Tell me what you guys think. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys have an amazing day. All right, bye.